What is the difference between struggle and suffering for gay men over 40, or in gay life in general? What is the difference between suffering, having anxieties, having depression, being stuck, and struggling along the way to achieving something very important to you? Whether it is relationships, whether this is a job, a career, whether this is losing weight. What is the difference between suffering and struggle? The main difference that I have noticed in my own life is that suffering paralyzes me. It paralyzes me, it causes me to be overwhelmed. It causes me not just to experience pain, but also feel stuck, feel confused about what I want to do. And that confusion and the overwhelm adds more to that strength of that pain that is endured in suffering. Sometimes, however, suffering is necessary. And I believe that there's a place and there's time in your life where suffering will be the only way to get you to learn something very important. As men, and as gay men, this works the same way. As men, we are stubborn. Sometimes masculinity is this energy that doesn't want to flow. It's stuck as opposed to being kind of free floating. That's feminine energy. And we sometimes don't want to learn the lesson. We want to protect our ego. We want to be right. And I'm sure you've heard of the saying, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? So a lot of us as gay men, we want to be right. We want to protect our ego. And then we never learn because of that. And then the world changes so fast, and then we keep repeating the same movements, the same actions because we haven't learned anything. And then we are presented with a certain drastic event, some loss, and then we begin to suffer. In my life, I've had a lot of suffering. I had a major accident during which I was almost killed. I had suffering with my finances. I declared a bankruptcy. I had major suffering with relationships. I've had several long-term relationships where they ended abruptly, or I was betrayed, or I was lied to, and it caused me to really almost freak out and feel this, not just loss, but feel this extraordinary sense of confusion, almost as if though somebody swept a rug from under me and I completely slipped and fell on the ground. I've had that happen a lot of times. And as I'm getting older and older and older, I watch out for the moments where I go from struggle or from just normal existence into suffering. And I watch out for the people that could bring that to me so that I don't repeat the same mistakes I have made in the past, so that I can move forward and avoid the suffering as much as possible. But let's go back to the meaning of suffering. So if you are suffering right now, there might be an important lesson underneath it, especially if you're suffering for longer than 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. If that suffering is continuing and it's not letting go, it perhaps means that you are not listening to your heart. Maybe you're still trying to be stronger. Maybe you're still trying to be better, tougher. And you're not listening and hearing what the world wants you to hear. You're still resisting reality. You're still fighting against the universal forces. And in that situation, perhaps you either need to get some help, get a coach or a counselor to maybe explain to you that what you're doing is not something that agrees with reality. And that's how we can easily come out of that suffering. A lot of times we suffer because we are in denial. We're in denial about how the world works. We're in denial about some of the principles of love, of relationships, of money making. And that simply means that you just need extra information. And that information can come to you really quickly, and you can unblock yourself and unlock yourself from the suffering and move to the next phase of your change process, and then eventually arrive at some struggles that eventually lead you to achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve. People sometimes need to be unlocked. Sometimes one word, or maybe one sentence, or one conversation, one session with a coach or a counselor or a psychologist can be what you needed to hear. Sometimes somebody has to say something to you directly, right in your face, to unlock you, to confirm what you already know about yourself. You may be struggling, or you may be suffering rather, because there's something about yourself you don't understand. And you are allowing the suffering to continue because you are looking inside of yourself for the answer. And sometimes somebody else can provide that to you. These answers not always have to come from within or from inside you. You can save yourself a tremendous amount of time if you get some help. If you have the resources, I highly recommend you get a coach, get a trainer, you get help, basically a psychologist or a counselor, somebody who can help you unlock yourself. And obviously I'm assuming that part of that unlocking will be learning the lessons and accepting yourself with that new lesson, coming out of denial and accepting that perhaps you made a mistake. Perhaps you thought you were stronger and you are not stronger, but perhaps you're weaker. And there's this moment of humility that's very refreshing, because humility and suffering sometimes is necessary to connect to everybody around us. A lot of people go into this mindset of glamour, bling bling kind of plasticky lifestyle. And then when suffering hits, they keep maintaining that glamour. They keep maintaining that plasticky mindset. And then the suffering gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally, they're just so anxious. They have panic attacks and they feel depressed that eventually they let go. Eventually. But you don't want to take years for that to happen. You want suffering to teach you these lessons that humility and letting go of being strong is an essential part of life, so that you can notice the spiritual parts of existence. And having an expensive car, having a beautiful, expensive, lavish apartment, and having expensive clothes is not that important, really, at the end of the day. What's important is love. What's important is treating other people with respect. What's important is developing friendships. What's important is identifying your vision and struggling towards your vision, towards your purpose. So now let's talk about the struggle. Struggle is different from suffering because struggle is by choice a lot of times. For example, I struggle in my life all the time in many different areas because I want to grow. I want my business to succeed. I want my health to remain in good condition. I want to make new friends. I want to develop new relationships. I want to deepen my relationships. And I don't get in my way all the time. In fact, most of the time, I don't get my way. And I struggle in understanding the bigger picture. I struggle because I know that through this struggle, I'm going to learn a valuable lesson about myself, about what I am made out of, my character. Struggle and sometimes suffering will chisel out your character, will make you tougher, will make you stronger. Sometimes having a few scars on your back is a good thing. And that's why struggle is actually a magical thing in your life. Struggle is when you identify the things you want. You may not have them yet, but it's okay because you are struggling to attain them. What we know from life in general is that the people that are living inside of the comfort zones, when they don't struggle, when they remain the same, they end up at some point falling into suffering. Because the world out there changes so fast these days that we have to grow with it. Otherwise we die inside and we look at the world and we can no longer make sense out of it because it changes so fast and it's so complex. 5 years ago, as an example, 5 years ago people were not texting and now everybody's texting. It's a huge shift in the way people communicate and we need to adapt to that. And there are massive consequences from that. People used to pick up the phone, now people text. Massive shifts are happening right now in our lives. And the struggle is important because the struggle will keep you connected to reality. The struggle will keep your character adjusted to whatever you need to become so that you can get what you want. With relationships, you're going to struggle. Gay men struggle in relationships big time. I struggle in my personal relationships as well. Just because I know psychology, just because I know sociology, and I study this subject, I still struggle because I can't change other people. So I need to adjust my approach with every different person. Just because you may have a degree in psychology does not mean that other people are going to change so that they make it easier for you. Of course, all of us are going to have these struggles. The difference is the acceptance of it versus running away and pretending you're not struggling until it hits you so hard that you feel the suffering. And that's the distinction between suffering and struggle. Struggle is good. You want to struggle, and it's the only sure way to avoid long-term suffering. We know from life, from studying famous books and famous people, that hard work and struggle pays back. Eventually, always pays back. Very few people struggle in their lives and achieve nothing. I mean, look around. Look at the famous people. Look at the wealthy people. Look at the people that have great health, that have amazing relationships. They have grinded their lives through struggle. They have grinded their psychology, their character, so that eventually they know what leads to success in friendships, relationships, in financial area of life, in wealth management, and also in personal health. So I invite you today to a few action steps. One is that if you are currently suffering, it's time to end the suffering by getting some help, especially if that suffering has been going on for more than 3 to 4 months. That's long enough. You probably know what you're supposed to be learning. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be learning from the suffering, let somebody else point you in the right direction so that we cut the learning curve from 2 years, sometimes 5 years, into just a couple of months. That's why coaching is so popular these days. Coaching industry is exploding. Why? Because people have a lot of issues and a lot of suffering, but they want to solve them really quickly. They don't want to go to a psychologist's office and to get into this yearly psychotherapy. They want to solve problem now, get the answer specific to their issue right now. So if you're suffering, if it's longer than 3 months, please get some help immediately. And then the other side, accept the struggle. Once you emerge out of the suffering, accept for the rest of your life, there will be a discomfort and there will be struggle. I have so many scars on my back from all the struggles I have endured, and I'm accepting the struggles that will come to me in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. I'm projecting that at 70, I'm going to have massive struggles, and I'm okay with it. Because once you get adjusted to it, you will notice that with the struggle comes also happiness. Massive happiness, because you see yourself changing. You see yourself adapting. You see yourself getting closer and experiencing the wonderful beauty of the world around us. Because when you struggle, you learn so much, so fast, that you actually get all the fruit. You get all the benefits. You get massive, better quality friendships. Because these people realize that you've struggled and they struggle. There's a lot of commonality. Everybody I know that focuses attention and learns about wealth, learns about business, eventually they succeed. Persistence in struggle leads to success. And especially if you add help, if you are getting some assistance, you are going to succeed. And there's one more piece to it. Pick 10 books in the 3 categories of your life and start reading, start learning, so that the struggle becomes less uncomfortable and the struggle becomes more intelligent, if I can say it that way. Because you can learn about how to struggle, you can learn about how to delegate some parts of it eventually, so that you are not hurting yourself along the way and it doesn't feel like life is difficult. Because some of you might think, life is not, I don't like the feeling of this difficulty all the time. But once you learn how to struggle, eventually you outsource some parts of it, especially in the business. And the parts that require for example, weight loss, the struggle that will be required to establish new habits, we know from psychology eventually it will be easier and easier. So the habit creation, the struggle to create new habits is temporary. We know from psychology that eventually you don't even notice the struggle anymore. And you can delegate other parts of the struggle to other people. So I highly encourage you to accept the struggle, to welcome it. And out of the 3 categories of life, pick 10 books from famous people, famous authors, and start empowering yourself, inspiring yourself all the time, every day, so that the struggle then will become your ticket to extraordinary happiness. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you more videos like these. Please subscribe. Please come to my Facebook page. Please come to my YouTube channel, and let's learn together. And until I talk to you next time, go out there, think big, stay present, and be a leader in your life today. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.